Have you ever wondered where the idea of a bank came from? We see them on every street corner, these modern temples of finance. But what if I told you that the original banks were actual temples, and that the connection between your money and ancient gods is much deeper and stranger than you could ever imagine? Let's travel back in time, nearly 4,000 years, to the sprawling, sun-baked city of Babylon. This wasn't just any city. It was the center of a powerful empire, a hub of trade, science, and culture. And at the very heart of Babylon, towering over everything, were the great temples dedicated to gods like Marduk. These weren't just places for quiet prayer. They were buzzing, dynamic centers of the entire Babylonian economy. Imagine you're a farmer back then. You've just had a fantastic harvest, more grain than you can possibly store or protect. Thieves are a constant threat, and your storage might not be safe from pests or weather. So, what do? You take your surplus grain to the temple. Why the temple? Because everyone believed it was the safest place in the entire city. It was the literal house of a god, protected not just by thick walls and guards, but by divine power. Stealing from a god? That was a terrifying thought, inviting divine wrath upon yourself and your family. The priests, who acted as the god's earthly administrators, would take your deposit and give you a clay tablet as a receipt, a record of your wealth, etched in cuneiform. This tablet was your proof of deposit. The temple was, in effect, the world's first secure deposit box. But the priests were clever. They saw all this wealth, grain, livestock, precious metals, just sitting there in the temple vaults. They realized it wasn't doing anyone any good, just gathering dust. So they started lending it out. Another farmer, whose harvest failed, could come to the temple for a loan to buy seeds for the next planting season. A merchant planning a long-distance trade expedition could get a loan of silver to finance his journey. Of course, these loans came with interest. The concept of interest itself might even have religious roots. In ancient Sumerian, the word for interest, mash, was the same as the word for calf. It was the idea that money, like livestock, could naturally reproduce. So when you returned your loan, you brought back the original amount plus its offspring. The temple, acting as a financial intermediary, grew richer and more powerful with every transaction. It was a bank in every functional sense. This model wasn't unique to Babylon. It spread across the ancient world. In ancient Greece, famous temples like the Parthenon in Athens and the Temple of Apollo at Delphi served as public treasuries. City-states would deposit their funds there, believing they were under the protection of the gods. These temples issued loans to individuals and even to entire city-states. In fact, if one city-state wanted to borrow from another, the transaction was often managed through a shared religious sanctuary, adding a layer of divine guarantee to the deal. If you defaulted on a loan from the god Apollo, you weren't just dealing with bankers. You were angering a powerful deity. The Romans continued this tradition. The Temple of Saturn in the Roman Forum was the state treasury, the aerarium. It held the republic's and later the empire's reserves of gold and silver. It was where official documents were stored, where the standards for weights and measures were kept, and where the spoils of war were dedicated. When Julius Caesar famously crossed the Rubicon and marched on Rome, one of his first and most critical moves was to seize the treasury at the Temple of Saturn to fund his army. He understood that controlling the temple meant controlling the financial heart of Rome. So, how did we get from temples to the glass and steel banks we know today? The transition happened gradually, driven by major shifts in society and religion. During the Middle Ages, the Knights Templar, a powerful Christian military order, created one of the most sophisticated early banking networks. A pilgrim traveling from Paris to Jerusalem could deposit their money at the Templar Preceptory in Paris and receive a letter of credit. They could then present this letter at the Templar outpost in Jerusalem to withdraw their funds. This system eliminated the incredible risk of carrying large amounts of cash on dangerous roads. The Templars became fabulously wealthy, acting as bankers to kings and popes across Europe, proving once again that a trusted, widespread organization in this case a religious one, was the perfect vehicle for finance. However, the relationship between religion and money wasn't always so smooth. For centuries, major religions like Christianity and Islam had strong prohibitions against usury, the charging of interest on loans. This created a complex moral dilemma. Society needed credit to function and grow, but the dominant religious ethics condemned the very practice that made lending possible. This is where a fascinating and often difficult chapter of history unfolds. In many parts of medieval Europe, because Christians were forbidden from lending at interest, the role of moneylender often fell to Jewish communities, who were permitted by their own laws to lend to non-Jews. This placed them in a vital but vulnerable position, providing an essential economic service while often facing resentment and persecution for it. The real shift came during the Renaissance and the Protestant Reformation. Thinkers like John Calvin began to reinterpret the old rules. They argued that charging reasonable interest wasn't inherently sinful. Instead, it was a fair compensation for risk and a legitimate part of commerce. This new way of thinking viewed wealth not as a sign of sin, but as a potential sign of God's favor, a reward for hard work, diligence, and thrift. This Protestant work ethic, as it came to be known, helped unleash a new era of capitalism and modern finance. It provided the moral and spiritual justification for the kind of economic activity that would build the modern world. The bank could finally step out from the shadow of the temple and become an institution in its own right. So, the next time you walk into a bank, take a look around. The high ceilings, the solid columns, the sense of security and order. It's no accident that they can feel a bit like modern cathedrals. They are the direct descendants of those ancient Babylonian temples. They are built on the same fundamental principles: trust, security, and the idea that stored wealth can be put to work to create more wealth. The language we use still echoes this past. We talk about trusts and bonds, words rooted in faith and obligation. The altar may have changed and the gods may have new names, like the Dow Jones or the S&P 500. But the ancient dance between our spiritual beliefs and our financial systems continues to this day. It's a powerful reminder that the things we value most, whether we call it divine blessing or financial security, have always been deeply intertwined. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the hidden histories that shape our world. We'll see you in the next one.